Shedeur Sanders was the only quarterback to not take first-team reps during yesterday's OTAs, but y'all heard the offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, right there saying, look, it's anybody's job. Y'all know if we're talking Shedeur Sanders on this show, buckle up, put your seatbelts on, 10-2, eyes on the road, because it might get spicy. Shady McCoy, you like Shedeur's chances to start week 1?
I didn't at first. Now I do. They say, dang, Shady, how you change so fast? What you don't know? Somebody told you something? You know something? Yes, I do. You know, my shady sources.
Shady sources.
Like, a lot of people push for the opportunity for Shedeur Sanders to show what he can do. And for some people and most people, they believe that, like, he's shown that. If Shedeur Sanders is the one going through it and dropped to the 5th round and had to hear all of it, and he ain't crashed out, there ain't no reason nobody should be crashing out. I mean, he's getting the opportunity to play to prove that he's a quarterback, and that's all you can ask for. But I understand your sentiment. You know, sometimes I think people be like, how could you say that? That's wild work. No one had a problem with these guys. Eli, 1 of 6 TDs, 9 interceptions. Payson, 3 of 13, 26 touchdowns, 28 interceptions. I think it has a lot to do where you're drafted at and what the expectation levels are. There's a lot of people that were tainted with the expectation levels because we were all told, mass people, that we should not like Shedeur Sanders because of who he is and his father. So that stuck with a lot of people. And that perception is hard to change as you continue to move forward.
It's absolutely a make-or-break game for his future with the Browns. I mean, I'm not going to say the future in the NFL because there's always somebody that might give you a second chance and grab you. But in terms of his future.
Hold up. Did Stephen A. Smith just predict the future of the Cleveland Browns? Because what happened on First Take this morning has the entire NFL world shook right now. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders, the son of Coach Prime himself, and Stephen A. just declared him QB1 for the Browns. Not next year, not eventually, right now. And if you think this is just another hot take, you haven't been paying attention to what's been happening in Cleveland. This might be the most important quarterback decision the Browns have made in decades, and Stephen A. Smith just put the entire organization on notice. Buckle up, because this is about to get real.
And look, the one thing that I said to start my answer, and we did not prep it, I said, he's being very politically correct. Tommy Rees did. Hey, all 4 of them can do it. They came out and they said, hey, there is a competition between all 4 of these guys, which I like. I think it's fair to all 4. Why not? If you don't have one starter, you don't know. You know, it could be Shedeur. You have 5 quarterbacks under contract right now. We know Deshaun Watson's probably not going to play this year. But for me, I do not like Shedeur Sanders' chances to start week 1. He hasn't even taken any first-team reps yet. It's June 5th. Now, if we have this conversation in training camp.
Let's set the stage here. The Cleveland Browns have been a quarterback graveyard since they came back into the league in 1999. We're talking about a franchise that has cycled through more quarterbacks than most people change their oil. Tim Couch, Brady Quinn, Brandon Weeden, Johnny Manziel, Deshaun Kaiser, Baker Mayfield, and now Deshaun Watson with his massive guaranteed contract that's looking like one of the worst deals in NFL history. But then something happened. The Browns made a surprising move in the 5th round of the draft, selecting Shedeur Sanders at pick 144. Most people thought it was a developmental pick, a project quarterback who would sit for years behind Watson. Coach Prime's son, sure, but nobody expected him to make waves this quickly. Fast forward to now, and Shedeur Sanders has been thrust into action due to Watson's struggles and injuries. And here's where it gets absolutely insane. This kid has shown flashes that have people questioning everything they thought they knew about this Browns roster. Now let's get to what Stephen A. Smith said that has everyone losing their minds. On First Take, Stephen A. didn't just suggest that Shedeur should get more playing time. He didn't just hint that maybe the Browns should consider giving him a shot. No. Stephen A. went nuclear. He looked directly into that camera and declared that Shedeur Sanders is QB1 for the Cleveland Browns, and that the future of this franchise just fundamentally changed. Not not might change, not could change, has changed. Stephen A. broke down the numbers, and they're actually staggering when you look at them. In limited action across 4 games, Shedeur has thrown for 769 yards, 5 touchdowns, and just 3 interceptions. His completion percentage sits at 52.4%, which isn't elite, but for a rookie thrust into action with minimal preparation, it's actually impressive. But here's what really got Stephen A. fired up. The game against the Titans. Shedeur Sanders went off. 364 yards through the air, 3 touchdown passes. This kid was dealing. He was making throws that Watson hasn't made all season. He was showing pocket presence, awareness, and most importantly, he was showing heart. And then Kevin Stefanski, the head coach who has won Coach of the Year twice, pulled him for a crucial 2-point conversion attempt. Stephen A. couldn't believe it. He said, and I quote, "It makes no sense what's going on with Kevin Stefanski."
But they had a weird play yesterday. It was like a direct snap to the fullback. He fumbled it, turned the ball over inside their own 35.
Yep, quickly turned it to a touchdown.
Turned it into points, right? So, and I'm watching the game going, that was stupid. But they asked Shedeur about it after the game, and this was a chance for Shedeur to be immature. This was a chance for Shedeur to be somewhat arrogant and cocky and to throw his head coach under the bus. So let's also be positive. Here's Shedeur Sanders when asked about that play call and what he thought about it, and the reporters trying to have him criticized.
This is where the story gets really juicy, because Stephen A. didn't just praise Shedeur, he went after Kevin Stefanski with the kind of heat we rarely see directed at a 2-time Coach of the Year winner. Stephen A. laid out a damning case against Stefanski's handling of the young quarterback. First, he pointed out that Stefanski threw Sanders into games without proper preparation. The kid didn't get the first-team reps in practice. He didn't get the game plan built around his strengths. He was essentially told to go out there and figure it out on the fly. Second, Stefanski hesitated to name him QB1 even after strong performances. It was like the coach was afraid to commit to the rookie, afraid to admit that maybe this 5th-round pick was actually better than the quarterback making $230 million guaranteed. Third, and this is what really set Stephen A. off, Stefanski made inexplicable in-game decisions, pulling Sanders for that 2-point conversion after he just threw for 364 yards? That's not coaching, that's sabotage. That's a vote of no confidence in your young quarterback at the exact moment when you should be building him up. Stephen A. said something that sent shockwave through the NFL community. He said he doesn't believe Shedeur's future should be in Cleveland, not because of Shedeur's talent, but because of how the organization is treating him. Now, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, the man who revolutionized Colorado football and turned them into a must-watch program, Shedeur's father. Deion has been remarkably quiet about his son's situation in Cleveland, at least publicly. But behind the scenes, Prime is watching every single snap, every single decision, every single moment where his son either gets opportunity or gets benched. And here's the thing that has NFL insiders buzzing. Deion Sanders has options. If Cleveland doesn't treat Shedeur right, if they don't give him a fair shot to be the franchise quarterback, what's stopping Shedeur from following in the footsteps of other quarterbacks who forced their way out of bad situations? The relationship between Deion and the Browns organization could become one of the most fascinating storylines in the NFL. Does Deion trust them with his son's career? Does he believe Kevin Stefanski is the right coach to develop Shedeur? Or is he already planning an exit strategy? We can't talk about Shedeur Sanders becoming QB1 without addressing the absolute disaster that is the Deshaun Watson contract. The Browns gave Watson $230 million fully guaranteed. Let me say that again, fully guaranteed. It's the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history. And what have they gotten in return? Injuries, inconsistent play, off-field controversies that never seem to go away, and a quarterback who looks like a shell of the player he was in Houston. The Browns are stuck. They can't cut Watson because of that guaranteed money. They can't trade him because nobody wants that contract. They're essentially paying $250 million for a quarterback who might not even be a top 20 player at his position anymore. Enter Shedeur Sanders, A fifth-round pick making rookie minimum salary, and he's already showing more fire, more competitiveness, and more upside than the guy making 100 times more money. This is why Stephen A's declaration matters so much. He's not just saying Shedeur is good, he's saying the Browns need to move on from the Watson era immediately, eat the dead money if they have to, and build around a young quarterback who actually wants to be there and actually has something to prove. Let's break down what Shedeur has actually done on the field, because the numbers tell a compelling story. In 4 games, with limited preparation and a game plan not designed for him, Shedeur has completed over half his passes for nearly 800 yards. That's averaging almost 200 yards per game. His touchdown-to-interception ratio of 5-3 isn't perfect, but it shows he's willing to take chances downfield and trust his arm. But stats only tell part of the story. When you watch the tape, you see a quarterback who processes information quickly, goes through his progressions, and doesn't panic under pressure. You see a player who has clearly been coached by someone who knows the position inside and out, and that's because he has been. Deion Sanders surrounded his son with elite quarterback coaching at Colorado, and it shows. The eye test matters, and Shedeur passes it. He looks like a starting NFL quarterback. He carries himself like one. He commands the huddle like one. And most importantly, his teammates believe in him. The Cleveland Browns are at a crossroads that will define this franchise for the next decade. They can continue down the path they're on, trying to make the Watson experiment work, rotating quarterbacks and wasting another year of their defensive core that's actually pretty good. Or they can do something radical. They can admit they made a mistake with Watson. They can embrace Shedeur Sanders as their quarterback of the future. They can build an offense around his strengths, give him the weapons he needs, and actually commit to developing a young quarterback the right way. Stephen A. Smith is essentially daring the Browns to make the bold choice. He's putting pressure on ownership, on the front office, and on Kevin Stefanski to stop playing politics and start playing to win. The Browns have a legitimate defense. They have playmakers on offense. What they've been missing is consistent quarterback play and leadership at the most important position in sports. Shedeur Sanders might be the answer to both problems. If Stephen A. is right, if Shedeur Sanders really is QB1 for the Browns going forward, it changes everything. Not just for Cleveland, but for the entire NFL. First, it means the quarterback draft class evaluations were wrong. If a fifth-round pick can come in and outplay first-round selections, what does that say about how teams scout and develop quarterbacks? Second, it puts pressure on every team that passed on Shedeur. There were concerns about his arm strength, his size, whether his college success was just a product of having elite talent around him at Colorado. If those concerns prove to be overblown, a lot of general managers are going to have some explaining to do. Third, it validates Deion Sanders' coaching approach. Critics have said Prime is all flash and no substance, that his quarterback development is overrated, that he can't prepare players for the NFL. If Shedeur succeeds, it proves all those critics wrong and potentially opens doors for Deion at the professional level. This is about more than just wins and losses. This is about legacy. For Shedeur Sanders, becoming a franchise quarterback for the Cleveland Browns would be one of the great underdog stories in NFL history. A fifth-round pick who defied the odds, proved the doubters wrong, and helped resurrect one of the league's most tortured franchises. For the Browns, getting the quarterback position right would be franchise-altering. This is a team that hasn't won a playoff game since 1994. Let that sink in. 3 decades without postseason success. If Shedeur can change that, he'll be a legend in Cleveland forever. For Stephen A. Smith, calling this correctly would add to his legacy as one of the great talent evaluators in sports media. He's putting his credibility on the line by making such a bold declaration so early in Shedeur's career. Stephen A. Smith didn't just make a hot take on First Take. He identified what could be the most important development in the NFL this season. Shedeur Sanders has shown enough in limited action to warrant serious consideration as the Browns' franchise quarterback. The organization now has a choice. They can continue down the path of mediocrity, or they can embrace change. They can keep trying to force the Watson situation to work, or they can hand the keys to a hungry young quarterback who has everything to prove. Kevin Stefanski's handling of this situation will define his legacy in Cleveland. If he mismanages Shedeur the way Stephen A. suggests he has been, he might not get a chance to win a third Coach of the Year award. The Browns front office is watching, the fans are watching, and now, thanks to Stephen A. Smith, the entire NFL world is watching. Shedeur Sanders is QB1. The future of the Cleveland Browns just changed. The only question now is whether the organization is smart enough to recognize it and bold enough to commit to it. Time will tell, but one thing is certain. We're all going to be watching what happens next in Cleveland very, very closely. This is the story that could define the NFL season. Don't look away now.